Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. Today, we've got a full slate of updates to break down for you. This is the 135th episode of Hawks Latest presented by Fan Art, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ride. I know I have, but like I said, we got a lot to break down today, and it isn't the happiest stuff ever because, man, it was a tough one last night. The Hawks got beat by the Washington Wizards of all teams. It was a game that slipped away and never really came back into reach. I mean, it was never a doubt that the Wizards were going to win that one, and it is such a shame because, man, that is not a good basketball team out there in Washington, and out there in DC. They're very young, they're struggling, and yeah, Hawks lost to them pretty good. So we're going to dive into everything that went wrong last night. It was a whole lot, but so definitely be sure to be locked in for that because I got a lot to say about that. We're going to highlight a significant streak in the NBA that came to an end last night on top of the loss. I mean, just another brutal blow in the second segment. Like I said, like everything that went wrong yesterday. And then we're going to move on. We're going to switch kind of the focus a little bit to a former Hawk who was really struggling in his new home. Well, I can't really say new home because, he's back where it all started, but he's not doing too well. It's Clint Capella. That's who we're going to be talking about in the third segment. And then finally, at the very end, we're going to address a major topic that is kind of running its course. It's kind of, Hawks fans are starting to see that it may not really be the case. And it's going to be the topic that has been circulating around fans for quite some time. Are the Hawks actually better without Trae Young? I'm going to tell you why they aren't. And whether you agree with me or disagree with me right now, just stay tuned in for the end because we're going to break it all down. So that's a lot to break down. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it and start with the Atlanta Hawks dropping to 1-2 in NBA Cup group play after a decisive 132-113 loss to the Washington Wizards. If I had said just last episode that the Hawks, it was 132-113 against the Wizards, I think pretty much everyone here would have assumed that this was me talking about a Hawks win, that the Hawks won by 20. This was not the case. The Wizards dominated the Hawks last night, and they were a team that entered the game with just one win on the season. And so, we have played quite a few games this season. It's still early. And it is still a season that is fresh, but the Wizards had lost 14 in a row. This is no game that there's no. I think it was Brad Rowland who actually said it, but I mean it was like there's no must-win games. It's November at this stage in the season, but like this is a game. This is a really bad loss. Going into it, we were like, okay, if the Hawks somehow dropped this one, it would have been a bad loss. I'm sorry if y'all can hear my dog in the background. She's yelling at someone, but Hawks lost this one pretty bad. Washington came out firing like a team desperate to kind of silence the critics. I mean, people have already chalked this one up to Atlanta, and they had a point to prove that they weren't the worst team in the NBA. They still might be. This still just might be an example of the Hawks just playing down to their competition. Because for some reason, this is a thing that the Hawks do. The Hawks always seem to play down to the Washington Wizards. But yeah, if we're breaking down specific player performances, CJ McCollum, the veteran on the Wizards that was actually traded there this offseason in the trade that sent. Who was it? Was it like DeJounte Murray? No. It was Jordan Poole. The Jordan Poole for DeJounte Murray. I mean, Jordan Poole for CJ McCollum swap that happened this offseason. Yeah, and it seems to be working out for the Wizards because, yeah, this guy just dropped 46 points against the Atlanta Hawks. He hit 10 threes. I mean, that was his season high for sure, and definitely one of the better games of his entire career. Very underrated player. Like if we're talking in terms of just careers, CJ McCollum, very underrated career. I mean, he's never won a ring. I don't think he's ever been an all-star. But he is still a very good player and has been for his entire career. He only missed 3 attempts from deep, so he was 10 to 13 from deep. That is unreal efficiency. He absolutely carved up Atlanta's defense, and it's such a shame because we have Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the backcourt. That is a terrifying defensive duo. It didn't matter. He saw them as young players. He paid them no mind, and he killed them. He finished just one triple away, one triple shy of his career high, and actually the Wizards franchise record record. It was a historic night for the Washington Wizards, and it just so happened to be against our boys. The Wizards in the first quarter, this was really kind of what separated them from the Atlanta Hawks. In the first quarter, they exploded for 45 points, and it was a ridiculous quarter. They actually made all eight of their first 8 3-point attempts. They were 8 for 8 to start the game, including, I think 4 from Corey Kispert. I was watching it in disbelief. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen in my life. At halftime, they had 77 points. I mean, just an offensive masterclass. Both of those, it was their season high in the first quarter, and then it was their season high at half. Just torching us. They made their first, like I said, first 8 3-pointers, and they built a lead that was up to 29 points in the opening period. They were legit up by 30. Now, the lead never got, actually, no, it did get past that at some point. But this was a crazy first quarter lead. It eventually reached 33. That's what the number was. And before both teams went to their benches and tried to regroup a little bit, I was like, surely this isn't sustainable. Surely this is not something that's going to stay, kind of on course the entire game. This is a team that's 1-15 for a reason. They had lost 14 games in a row for a reason. Surely they're not going to shoot like this all night. And while they didn't shoot as well as they did in the first quarter for the entire night, they still shot really well. Former number 2 pick, last year's number 2 pick, Alex Sarr, who famously declined to work out with the Atlanta Hawks. His camp refused to even think about Atlanta and give them a pre-draft workout. He had a great game. And that was kind of one of the more disappointing parts of the matchup, because I was really hoping we would get kind of a statement game from Zach Langley. And Langley actually didn't even play too bad. He actually played pretty well, honestly, if we compare it to some of his previous performances. But Sarr still very much outplayed him, and he was a very big factor in getting Washington the dub. He had 27 points and 11 rebounds, just flashing the potential that Washington has been waiting to see. He's had a pretty good season. As unfortunate as it is to say, Sarr has been confidently better than Zachary Rizeshay this season. And I still believe in Zachary Rizeshay, but yeah, it's been a rough stretch of games for him. Ever since he came back from that fall that he suffered under the rim against the Phoenix Suns, he just has not been very good. And so I believe in him, but it's been a rough stretch, and it sucks that one of his, he got outplayed by a guy like Alex Sarr, just considering the narrative in the national media right now. For Atlanta, though, we had some other decent performances. Kristaps Porzingis, who had a green light of all green lights in that first quarter. He was just letting it fly. That's one thing I love about KP. It doesn't matter how he's shooting, for a night, he will just let it fly. It genuinely does not matter if he's 0 for 10. He's just gonna keep his same shot diet. And honestly, I kind of respect it. That's a thing that the Hawks could certainly use. But he had 22 points. He was definitely acting as Atlanta's kind of number one offensive option that night. And then Onyeka Okongwu, who was probably Atlanta's best player, on both ends of the floor last night, he had 20 points. It was another 20-point night for him. So he just continues to kill it. But Atlanta's interior defense was just getting carved up, and so these great scoring performances from guys in the front court, cool. But if you can't stop them down low, what's the point? Defensively, the Hawks had no answer for, even not just in the interior, but for Washington's spacing and their ball movement and their hot shooting. There wasn't a ton of adjustments that were being made. I thought in that first quarter, honestly, I didn't think before Washington went on that crazy run, the defense was doing pretty well. But as soon as Washington got out on that run, just the effort kind of suffered. It wasn't the same effort that this team has been portraying literally every game of this hot streak. And you can't even really call it a hot streak anymore, because in this last stretch of games, the Hawks have really come back down to earth. It's clear they missed their star, and I'll talk about that in the final segment. But yeah. It's Atlanta's worst loss since the season opener against Toronto when the Hawks fell 138-118. And it's technically only a 19-point loss, but it was much worse than the stat, than the box score shows. Because Atlanta at the very end of the game, I believe, went on a 12-0 run. They were down over 30, and then they kind of got some points in garbage time. I think it was Zach Rizeshay actually who scored several buckets in garbage time to kind of pad the numbers, kind of make it look like it's not as bad of a blowout as it really was. But this was still, the Hawks, if we want to be technical about it, the Hawks lost by 30. This was definitely the worst loss of the season, and it came at a very unfortunate time. Legit. I mean, I wouldn't say I was talking crazy because I was about to say like the confidence that I had in this team, in entering this game, was a little unwarranted, but I don't think it was. I mean, we had just won 2 straight against the Hornets and who was it? It was another bad team. It was the Pelicans. And both of those teams, you can argue I mean, you can't even really. I mean, they are better than this Washington Wizards team. And then the Wizards, who had just came off of 14 straight losses, they just came in and they destroyed the Hawks. And I don't think anyone could have predicted that. Everyone was really upset. I mean, there were definitely some overreactions, but I don't even know if I can call them overreactions because this was a really bad game. The part that upsets me the most is that on Friday, they're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers at home, and I can almost guarantee you they're going to win it. They're gonna give up. They're gonna give a crazy effort. Onyeka Okongwu is going to have another amazing game. Jalen Johnson is gonna get back on track. They're gonna beat the Cleveland Cavaliers on Friday. I don't think that's ridiculous to say. It's just this is what they do. They play down to their competition and then they play up to their competition. And so they're now 1-2 in NBA Cup group play. But I mean, they are effectively like eliminated. I mean, it is going to be an absolute miracle if they can get back into that mix and get to Vegas. So that was fun last year, but it looks like we will not be returning to Vegas this year. And so maybe we can kind of shift our focus to actually winning like important stuff. We can get the guys together, get the chemistry going for the postseason, and maybe just maybe once everyone's back and healthy and connecting at a high rate, this team can make a deep postseason run. So yeah, very disappointing loss. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about it, so let me know down below your thoughts about it. But let's go ahead and move on to another thing that happened last night in the midst of the Hawks Wizards game, where the Hawks were just absolutely stunned by whatever the hell was going on in Washington. But another unfortunate thing happened last night, and it's pretty disappointing from a historical standpoint because Dyson Daniels had a chance to put himself in some absolutely elite company. Now let's not get it twisted. I mean, Daniels in the past 2 seasons, his defensive abilities have been historic. I mean, this is someone who has been in some really elite company defensively. I mean, last year was one of the best defensive seasons by any player ever, and he somehow did not win Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm a little worried because that might have been his best chance ever to win Defensive Player of the Year, because Wemby was hurt and it was really wide open. And I think he deserved it, but he's probably not going to get it this year, just considering some of the crazy defensive seasons that some of these bigs are having. But yeah, he had a really long streak going on in a certain category, and it has finally come to an end after last night's disappointing loss. So not only did the Hawks lose by a wide margin to a really bad team, a historic streak has come to an end. So heading into last night, Dyson Daniels had recorded at least 1 steal in 70 straight regular season games. In 70 straight regular season games, and that streak actually ranks 4th longest in NBA history. He was on track to put himself into the top 3 ever for longest streak with at least 1 steal. The people he was behind were Michael Jordan, who is widely known as one of the top 2 greatest players of all time. He had 77, so Daniels was 7 off of him. Alvin Robertson, who had 105, and the longest streak in NBA history is Chris Paul, who had 108. Dyson Daniels was just 7 games shy from tying MJ. And it was very reasonable to think that he was going to, quickly take over MJ over the next week and then over the next 2 weeks, and then over the course of the season catch up to Robertson and Paul. He was just 7 games away from tying MJ, so this one's gonna hurt. And yeah, against the Wizards, he finished without a steal for the first time since December 12th of last year. So, it's been quite a while. Even so, that's the thing. A lot of people were kind of talking crazy about Dyson on the offensive end, just last night, but really just in general all season. And he hasn't been as good on the offensive end as he was last year. But you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's a new roster. He has a very new role in the offense. We don't rely on him as much as we did last year in stretches, especially when Jalen was down for an extended period of time. But he has not been very good offensively this season. But the game before this one against the Wizards, he had 22 points and a very all-around effort. He actually hit a 3 as well. But in this game against the Washington Wizards, I don't think he was very bad offensively. I don't think he wasn't getting the garbage time points that some of the others on the team were getting, and kind of making them look like they have a little bit of a better box score than they really did. Daniels last night had 11 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists in 32 minutes. So like I said, like his scoring has not been great, and it wasn't great last night. But this was the second consecutive game that he had hit a three in which his previous it had been 8 games since the last game where he hit a three. I mean, he had 8 consecutive games of missing all of his 3-point attempts, and so now in 2 consecutive games he has hit one. So that offense is slowly starting to come together, and he's also taken a leap as a playmaker this year. So the offensive game is more than just scoring. So I don't think he's been as bad on the offensive end as some have kind of made him out to be. And he continues to be one of the league leaders in steals per game. I mean, he's averaging over 2 per night. And there's no doubt that another streak could begin soon. He probably this season. Well, actually, no, he can't do it this season because there's not even 70 games left. So sorry, I was like, wait, is there 7? There's not even 70 games left. So maybe if the Hawks make a deep postseason run, then Dyson can kind of get this streak back on track this season. But it's going to be frustrating because this is probably going to be like one of the only maybe 1 or 2 games this season where Dyson doesn't get a steal. And so I mean, while the streak is over, the defensive impact is not. Daniels remains one of the most valuable pieces on the defensive end, really in the NBA, but definitely for the Hawks. So I expect the streak to start again soon. And Dyson, it's just an unfortunate circumstance. Last night, everything about last night was just unfortunate. And the only thing Dyson Daniels and the Atlanta Hawks can do is look forward to what we have. And the schedule is going to get a whole lot more difficult from here because the past few weeks, it's been ridiculously easy for the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, they have had a really easy schedule. Outside of the first week of the season, it's been really easy. And luckily this has come with Trae Young out of the lineup. So then when he comes back, maybe we'll start another easy stretch because it's going to get a little difficult from here. So, hopefully they can just lock in and not lose games like this to the Washington Wizards. God, it's so frustrating. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. Let's stop talking about last night. The vibes were terrible. Let's talk about, well, this isn't even really good either, if I'm being completely honest. But, I mean, it is good considering that Atlanta did not bring this guy back. And one storyline that has really flown under the radar this season is the departure of veteran center Clint Capella. Because Atlanta got rid of him this offseason, and it's not something that was talked about a whole lot, because he didn't play a whole lot for the Hawks last season. I mean, this was a guy who, it was pretty clear that Atlanta wasn't going to bring him back. They actually, at last year's trade deadline, they were shopping him. General manager Landry Fields, who was the guy before Anzi Saleh, he was kind of he admitted, he was like, we've been sitting Clint Capella because they sat him several games in January. They were admittedly, we were working on a trade. We were trying to find him a new home. And so after that, I mean, it was kind of clear, he suffered that season-ending injury, but it was kind of clear that Atlanta just did not envision him as part of the short-term or long-term roster. And so, they eventually just let him walk this offseason. And, so we got to talk about, how his move back to Houston this offseason has aged over the first month of the season. Every now and then we're going to kind of check in on these Swarmer Hawks just because, it's the right thing to do, just see how, maybe the front office did and how maybe if it's a move that they regret or if it's a move that is looking good. And this is an example of one that's looking good. This offseason they completed that sign and trade with the Houston Rockets. He was actually part of that 7-team deal, sending Clint Capella back to the franchise where his career began. If y'all are unfamiliar, Capella was a long tenured Hawk, but before that he was with the Rockets. I mean, he was James Harden's role man. I mean, he had a pretty good gig, and so they wanted to go ahead and bring him back. I mean, he's a good teammate, good veteran. It makes sense a little bit for on the surface. It makes sense. We're going to talk about why it didn't really make sense in just a second. But I mean, at the time though, for Hawks fans, this decision to let Clint walk was a little bit divisive. Some fans felt like Capella's decline was clearly underway, and this was probably the majority. A lot of people saw that he didn't really have the athleticism that he once had. I mean, he's not as impactful of a player nearly as he once was, because Clint used to be a very, very impactful player. And so a lot of fans, a lot of the level-headed fans, were like, okay, this is cool. Let's go ahead and just let him walk. Let's let him move on. The Hawks need to move on. Him off the team is probably better than him on the team. team. Others though definitely defended Clint with their lives. And while I can understand it from a perspective of his rebounding, rim protection, and veteran presence, locker room presence, I can understand that offering real value. But the way he was as a player, at this stage in the modern NBA, it just wasn't anything that was going to move the needle as a starting center. Atlanta needed to go another direction, and they did. But so far in this season, the results speak clearly. So let's take a look at Clint Capella's season so far for the Houston Rockets. He's their third center in the depth chart behind Alperen Sengun and Steven Adams. And through 14 games with the Rockets, Capella is averaging 3 points, 4 rebounds, and under 10 minutes per game. Across the board, those are career lows. He has had probably the worst season of his career. And now it's early, he can get it together, but I don't see his role increasing anytime soon, obviously, if none of these other factors come true. And what makes it a whole lot more concerning for the Houston Rockets specifically is the contract that he was given in the offseason. So this offseason, the Rockets didn't just sign Clint Capella to a veteran minimum deal, because that would have made a little bit more sense. They gave him a 3-year, $21.5 million deal. That is a surprisingly large commitment, given this guy's reduced athleticism and very rapidly declining production. And remember, though, what makes this a whole lot more confusing when they did it was the fact that literally right before they did that, they re-signed their veteran backup center, Steven Adams, to a 3-year deal. And the only difference between those two was that Steven Adams was making a whole lot more money over that 3-year deal. So it looked like they had their center room kind of locked up. It was Alperen Sengun and Steven Adams. I mean, both of them are on those long-term contracts. And Sengun's really thriving as their franchise center. I mean, he's had a great season. I mean, he's shown steady progression in every year, and he's very young. And so, they brought in Capella to be their third string big. And so it's like, why are you bringing in a third string big on $21 million over the span of 3 years? It didn't make sense to me. His lack of mobility has really made it difficult for the Rockets to find a consistent role for him. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think Houston is really, really regretting kind of giving him that long-term commitment. I mean, for Hawks fans, though, it's bittersweet because Clint Capella played a major part in the Hawks 2021 Eastern Conference Finals run. I mean, I'm sure you all remember, how effective he was under the rim. He was definitely the Hawks don't make the Eastern Conference Finals without him in 2021 because he was genuinely playing at like a Defensive Player of the Year level. I mean, his interior presence was undeniable, and his chemistry, his pick and roll chemistry with Trae Young was just unreal. And so those years won't be forgotten, but it is long past that, and Capella does not really have much left. He had a good run, man, but it might be time to hang it up. The call to move on from General Manager Landry Fields appears to have been the correct one. And so I think that was a thing that both Landry and Saleh kind of agreed on, moving forward with the identity of this team. So it's going to be very interesting moving forward to see how head coach Ime Udoka kind of manages his center rotation moving forward. If both Sengun and Adams are healthy, I mean, there's no way Capella is going to play any sort of big role in the rotation. If injuries hit, though, I mean, he may get one more chance at like a late career resurgence, but I can't really see that happening just with the way he's moving on the court and can barely jump anymore at his age. We wish him the best, though. Absolutely no bad blood with Clint Capella. Definitely a very respected Hawks veteran for good reasons. So let's go ahead and move on from a former Hawk to another storyline that has really kind of been a very popular debate amongst Hawks fans all season. And actually, just saying it's happened this season is certainly putting it lightly, because this has been something that has plagued Hawks fans and the national media surrounding the Hawks for like 4 years at this point. People have been trying to get Trae Young out of town, and they have been talking about really anything that they can to kind of spark that controversy and spark the debates. A lot of people are wondering whether the Hawks are better without Trae Young, and so I'm making this segment to kind of address it directly and in detail. Not even just based on current trends, because it has been pretty bad in the present tense, but also just historically. No. The Hawks are not better without Trae Young, and I think that has been pretty evident based on our play this season and literally his whole career. So here's where the conversation should begin. So if you just look at it on paper, this season, including the horrific, embarrassing loss against the Washington Wizards last night, Atlanta has gone 9-5 in 14 games that Young has missed with a right MCL sprain this season. So that looks pretty good on paper. That surface level, no other contacts considered, that is a positive record. That is very good. Oh, not very good, but it is good. It looks solid on paper, but if you take a deeper look at what is potentially going on there, it reveals the truth a little bit. So many of those wins came against inferior opponents. I mean, think about the teams that Atlanta has beaten without Trae. I mean, we're looking at like the Pacers, the Pelicans, the Hornets, all these teams. I don't know why is it serious. Whoa, a computer just turned off. Whoa, can y'all see me? Okay, awesome. Sorry, I think my computer may not be a Trae Young fan. They just tried to shut off this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, so the Nets, just think about these teams that the Hawks have beaten without Trae. I mean, there have been a few solid teams in the mix, but most of them have been against much inferior opponents. And if you kind of think about what are Trae's weaknesses, I mean, on the defensive end, Trae's never going to be a very positive defender because he's very small and sometimes gets frustrated and isn't always given his best effort on the defensive end. That has improved, but nonetheless, I mean, Trae is still a poor defender if we're talking about from a not unbiased perspective. But with Trae Young out of the lineup, if especially recently the defense has began to slip. They looked really good defensively as soon as Trae Young went down, against these inferior teams that they were, rightfully defeating. But yeah, recently, over the last week or two, maybe the defense has not looked good. And really, this has been a trend for I think 5 or 6 consecutive games. The Hawks defense has looked very bad, actually. One of the worst in the league. The offense has struggled as well in late game situations, and this has been the biggest struggle that Atlanta has dealt with without having Trae. When the defense makes it a half court game, when they're not able to run in transition, because that's great for stretches in games. That's great. That's a great momentum thing. That's a great thing to kind of build on a lead and capitalize off of momentum, because transition is really a big momentum thing. Getting out into the open floor. But late in a game when it's 105 to 105 and it's kind of just y'all are taking turns in the half court and y'all are leaning on your number one option to go and get yourself a bucket or generate an open look to another guy in the corner or on the wing. That's where Atlanta has really struggled. They don't have that guy. They don't have that closer. Late game situations have been terrible for the Hawks. They have not been very good in the clutch. I mean, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has done a solid job, but nothing like the impact that Trae would have on the court. And so right now, looking at the Hawks in the standings, they currently rank 6th in the Eastern Conference, and they have climbed as high as 3rd. And actually, they probably should have been 2nd, just considering that they had more wins than the 2nd seed at that time, but they had suffered one more loss, so they aren't technically 2nd in that. But they have proven that they are a very good team in the Eastern Conference, and it speaks to their depth and their adaptability and just ability to kind of lock in and rely on some of the guys that they may not traditionally be relying upon. But this is not something that means that Trae Young is replaceable, though. In fact, the game last night against the Washington Wizards is an absolutely perfect example of what can happen when the Hawks don't have a closer or they don't have a creator who can slow the game down. And when the other team is going on a run, not letting them just immediately get back on the offensive end and continue running up the score. This would not have happened if Trae was in the lineup. I mean, because he can slow the game down. He can read a defense better than really anyone in the NBA, and he can get a quality shot for himself when everything has broken down. I mean, he's someone you can rely on for a bucket, whether that's early in the game or in a late game scenario. And, I want to give credit to some of the guys because I'm not just absolutely, dogging on the guys and defending Trae, but the conversations have been ridiculous. Nikhil's done an amazing job as that fill-in starter at the 1, but he's no type of point guard. He can get himself a bucket, but he's not a very good playmaker. I mean, historically, looking over the course of his career. And I mean, guys off the bench like Vit Krejci and Keaton Wallace have stepped up as ball handlers, but they're outside of their role a little bit, and they need a guy facilitating for them. I mean, the pace has been great. The pace has been top 12 in the entire NBA, and this has been what has kept Atlanta afloat. This has literally been the defining factor of the Atlanta Hawks this season. They've been playing really quick. Defenses haven't been ready for their speed and their ability to get out on fast breaks, and that has been what has led them to these wins. But this is not sustainable success. This is not something that is going to be a strength, come playoff time, because that allows you to go on runs, like I said. But in order to get a bucket late in the game, you cannot just rely on your pace and your ability to get steals and stuff like that. and the ball has moved well, and that has been another key thing. And so like you can kind of argue that like maybe the overall ball movement is better when Trey's off the floor, but it's just not something that it's like you need someone who you can rely upon. This is the problem. I mean, the Hawks cannot score consistently in half court without Trey. I mean, they cannot control the tempo in crunch time without Trey. And despite all the criticism he gets, I mean, the defense has clearly began to fall apart without him. It looked good at the beginning, like I said, but it has fallen apart. And so this team is no longer a defensive-oriented team. And so if they're not a defensive-oriented team with Trey out, what are they? Because you can't say they're a dominant offensive team because, the past several games, the offense has not looked very good. They were in a dogfight with the Charlotte Hornets just a few games ago. They beat up on the Pelicans pretty good, but, before that, they had lost 2 consecutive games to the only, kind of real competition they have played over this entire streak. So Trey's return is going to require a whole lot of readjustment. There's no doubt about it. The first few games Trey comes back, this team might struggle a little bit like they kind of are struggling right now. I mean, the rotations are going to shift and tempo is going to change and everyone's going to need to take some time to find the right balance again and kind of get off of the ball a little bit more than they have been. But once everything clicks, the ceiling for this team jumps significantly. So not just a team that's going to make the playoffs and then try to beat teams in transition and fail to do that in a playoff setting where you need like a 1-1, a 1A. And so, yeah, like I said, don't overreact when Trey comes back and the team starts to suffer a little bit in the first few games because that's going to be natural. But this team's ceiling just raises so much higher when he comes back, and there's no doubt about it. And then, yeah, if you look at the team, just with everyone healthy, I mean, Young, Daniels, Ricochet, Johnson, Porzingis, off the bench, Okongwu, Alexander Walker, I mean, Vit Krejci, Mo Gay, Luke Kennard, just so much depth on the team. This team is built for Trae Young. People are forgetting that if it wasn't for Trae Young, the Hawks aren't bringing in Porzingis. They're not bringing in Luke Kennard. They're not bringing in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I mean, this team is built, is tailor-made for Trae Young's strengths and weaknesses, and so they're not just going to give up on that, and the Hawks are not going to long-term be better without Trae Young. They have legitimate potential once he's back to be more than just a playoff team. I mean, they can seriously contend in the Eastern Conference. We've seen it so far, but if they want to, consistently beat like these better teams, they're going to need Trae Young in the lineup, and so this team expects an update on Young's status by the end of the week. He's nearing that reevaluation date, so that return is a lot sooner than we may believe. I mean, if this recovery trend continues, we may finally see that fully intact lineup the front office envisioned this past offseason that we have been so excited for. If we're looking at like a return date, I'm thinking probably like mid-December, maybe like a bit earlier in December if this reevaluation goes extremely well. So to recap, wow, oh my gosh, a tough loss to the Wizards last night, and it was a historic defensive streak for Dyson Daniels coming to an end along the way, and just another negative thing that happened last night. Clint Capella's situation in Houston kind of raises questions about Houston's front court decisions, and the conversation about Trae Young's value just becomes clearer by the day. This is a team who certainly needs his abilities. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Hawks Latest. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on the channel. We're going to be pumping out videos every single day, keep you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks, but let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What were your thoughts on that Atlanta Hawks loss last night to the Washington Wizards, the really embarrassing one where we lost by 30. I'm not going to say we lost by 19. We lost by 30. I'm not going to count those garbage time points. Dyson Daniels streak coming to an end. Let me know your thoughts on that. Do you think he can get a longer streak like that and eventually break the NBA record for most consecutive games with at least one steal? What are your thoughts on Clint's situation in Houston? Do you think he's still got it? You think he's still got a little bit of dominant play left in him? I don't think so, but let me know down below. And also, what are your thoughts on if this team is better without Trae Young or not? And are you excited for him to come back? Do you think that this lineup can benefit with him in it? So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and I will see you guys next time.